Adeswa, aware of her husband's actions, tried to keep her feelings in check. She understood Bankole's desire to have a child and wanted to support him even if it meant turning a blind eye to his relationship with Ini. However, Adeswa's concern grew. Bankole was spending more and more time with Ini, attending doctor's appointments and even staying over at her apartment. Ini, a beautiful and bright lady, had always prided herself on her ability to handle life's challenges. She lived in a modest apartment in Lagos and worked as a marketing executive for a reputable company. She seemed to be on track until she missed her period. Anxiety gripped her as she bought a pregnancy test strip from a local pharmacy and hurried home to confirm her suspicions. The test results showed two bold lines: she was pregnant. Fear and confusion clouded Ini's mind. She was dating Bankole, a charming and influential married man. Their relationship had started innocently enough, but it had quickly evolved into something more serious. Bankole had always been attentive and caring, but Ini knew their relationship was built on shaky ground. Telling him about the pregnancy seemed daunting. After several sleepless nights, Ini decided to meet Bankole at their usual spot. She sat nervously, waiting for him to arrive. Her mind raced with thoughts of how he might react. Would he be angry? Would he end their relationship? The uncertainty was so overwhelming for her. When Bankole finally arrived, he greeted her with his usual warm smile. They exchanged pleasantries, but Ini couldn't focus on small talk. She took a deep breath and decided to break the news to him. Bankole, I have something important to tell you, Ini began, her voice trembling. Bankole's expression turned serious as he leaned in closer. What is it, my love? I am pregnant, she blurted out, feeling a mix of fear and relief. Bankole's eyes widened in surprise. For a moment, Ini thought she saw a flicker of anger, but it was quickly replaced by an unexpected look of joy. Ini, this is a wonderful news, Bankole exclaimed, reaching out to hold her hand. Ini was baffled by his reaction. He had expected anger, disappointment, or even rejection, not joy. Her confusion deepened when she thought about her past. Bankole, there is something else that I need to tell you, Ini said, her voice barely above a whisper. I had an abortion for you last year, without your knowledge. Bankole's reaction was not what she expected. Instead of anger or sadness, he smiled even wider. Ini sat in stunned silence, trying to process Bankole's unexpected joy about the pregnancy and his lack of reaction to her confession about the abortion. Days passed and her anxiety grew. One pleasant evening, Bankole called her, his voice calm but serious. Ini, there is something we need to discuss, he said. Can we meet tomorrow? Ini nodded, agreeing to meet him. The next day, they met at the same restaurant. Ini felt a knot of apprehension in her stomach. Bankole wasted no time in getting to the point. Ini, my wife Adesua wants to meet you, he said. Ini's eyes widened in shock. Why does she want to meet me? She asked, her voice filled with anxiety. Bankole sighed deeply. Adesa and I have been trying to have a child for years, but we've had no luck. When I told her about your pregnancy, she was surprisingly understanding. She wants to meet you to discuss a proposal. Ini felt her heart race. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. What kind of proposal? She asked cautiously. Bankole looked at her with a mixture of hope and seriousness. Adesa and I want you to carry the baby to term and then give the child to us for adoption. We will take care of all the legal documentation to ensure everything is done properly. Ini was speechless. The idea of giving up her child was overwhelming. She didn't know how to respond. We will provide you with the financial support throughout your pregnancy, Bankole continued. A monthly allowance and a substantial sum of money once the baby is born. But you will have no contact with the child after the adoption. Ini felt a wave of emotions crash over her. The offer of financial support was tempting, but the thought of never seeing her child again was heart-wrenching. What do you think? Bankole asked, his eyes searching for an answer. I need some time to think about it, Ini replied, her mind swirling with conflicting thoughts. Bankole nodded. Take all the time you need. Just know that Adesa and I are serious about this. We truly want to be parents, and this could be our only chance to an answered prayer. Ini left the restaurant feeling more confused than ever. The proposal had thrown her into a whirlwind of emotions, leaving her to grapple in the decision that would change her life forever. Ini spent the next few days replaying Bankole's proposal over and over in her mind. The financial support was tempting, especially with the promise of a substantial sum upon the baby's birth. It could secure her future and help her achieve her dreams. She had set aside so many big dreams she wanted to fulfill that needed financing. But the thought of giving up her child gnawed at her conscience. She decided to confide in her friend Ifoma. They met at Ifoma's apartment, a cozy place filled with the warmth and familiarity of friendship. Ini explained everything from her relationship with Bankole to the unexpected pregnancy and the shocking proposal. I don't know what to do, Ifoma, Ini said, her voice trembling. The money would help me so much, but I can't imagine giving up my baby. Ifoma listened intently, her face serious. Ini, this sounds like they are trying to buy your child, she said gently. You need to think about what's best for you and your baby, not just the money. Ini nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. I feel so lost. What if I regret it forever? Only you can decide what's right, Ifoma said, reaching out to hold Ini's hands. But remember, you have options. You don't have to do this alone, she added. Over the next few days, Ini wrestled with her decision. She weighed the benefits of a financial security against her emotional cost of giving up her child. Each time she thought she had made up her mind, doubt crept in, making her question everything all over again. One evening, as she lay in bed, Ini felt a sudden surge of clarity. She realized that no amount of money could replace the bond she would have with her child. She couldn't go through with the adoption. She had to confront Bankole and demand that he take full responsibility of his child as opposed to the adoption. The next day, Ini called Bankole and asked to meet him at the restaurant. When he arrived, she wasted no time. Bankole, I have made my decisions, Ini said firmly. I can't give up my child. I want you to take responsibility for our baby. Bankole looked taken aback. Ini, we had an agreement. I know, but I can't do it, Ini replied, her voice steady. This is our child, my child, and we need to raise it together. I won't give the baby up for an adoption. No, I won't. Bankole's expression hardened. This will complicate things, Ini. It's what I need to do, Ini said, standing her ground. I am not asking for anything unreasonable. Just take responsibility as the father. You got me pregnant. Bankole sighed deeply, realizing that Ini's mind was made up. He nodded reluctantly. Alright, Ini, we'll figure this out. Ini felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but she knew she had made the right choice for her and her unborn child. With Bankole agreeing to take responsibility, Ini felt a sense of empowerment. She began to make demands for her comfort and the baby's well-being. Bankole, true to his words, started supporting her financially. At first, it was just the essentials: doctor's visits, prenatal vitamins, and healthy food. But as the months passed, Ini's demands grew. She moved into a more upscale apartment in Victoria Island, one of Lagos' affluent neighborhoods. The place had a stunning view of the lagoon, with modern furnishings and a spacious layout. Ini also started shopping for designer clothes, accessories, and luxurious baby items. Bankole footed the bills without much complaint, wanting to ensure Ini and the baby were well taken care of. Adesa, aware of her husband's actions, tried to keep her feelings in check. She understood Bankole's desire to have a child and wanted to support him even if it meant turning a blind eye to his relationship with Ini. However, as the weeks went by, Adesa's concern grew. Bankole was spending more and more time with Ini, attending doctor's appointments and even staying over at her apartment. One evening, as Bankole prepared to leave for Ini's place, Adesa tried to hide her unease. Bankole, do you have to go tonight? We hardly spend time together anymore, she said softly. Bankole paused, guilt flickering across his face. Adesa, you know how important this is. Ini needs me right now, and I need to be there for our baby. Adesa forced a smile. I understand. Just don't forget about us, she said. Despite her efforts to remain composed, Adesa wouldn't ignore the growing distance between her and her husband Bankole. She felt isolated in their once warm and loving home. The knowledge of her husband's infidelity was a bitter pill to swallow, but her inability to conceive made it even harder to protest. She convinced herself that this sacrifice was necessary for Bankole's happiness. Bankole, on the other hand, found himself increasingly torn between two women in his life. He enjoyed the excitement and novelty of being with Ini, but he also felt a deep sense of loyalty and affection for Adesa. Juggling both relationships became a complex and exhausting task. Yet he persisted, hoping to keep everyone content. As Ini's pregnancy progressed, her lifestyle became even more extravagant. She frequented high-end salons, drove a brand new car, and hosted lavish gatherings for her friends. Her baby shower was the talk of the town. Bankole funded it all, trying to avoid any confrontation that might upset her, especially knowing that she's carrying his child. Ini, reveling in her newfound lifestyle, began to grow more assertive. She enjoyed the attention and the luxuries, feeling that she deserved it all for the sacrifices she was making. However, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that her arrangement with Bankole was fragile and temporary. Adesa's tolerance was wearing thin. She couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy each time Bankole chose to spend time with Ini over her. Although she remained outwardly supportive, her heart was heavy with doubt and insecurities. As the months went by, the tension in this complicated arrangement continued to build, setting the stage for an inevitable confrontation. As Ini's pregnancy neared its final stages, the strain on Bankole's household became more apparent. Bankole was now spending almost every evening at Ini's place, helping with preparations for the baby. This left Adeswa feeling increasingly isolated and neglected. One night, as Bankole was about to leave for Ini's place, Adeswa couldn't hold back her frustration any longer. "Bankole, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Bankole stopped in his tracks. "What is it, Adeswa?" "I can't keep living like this," she began, trying to hold back her tears. "You are always with her. I feel like I am losing you. I feel like I am losing the man I married." Bankole sighed, rubbing his temples. "Adeswa, I am doing this for us, for our family, for our child, my child, the one I fathered." Adeswa sighed. "But it doesn't feel like that," she replied, her voice breaking. "It feels like you are choosing her over me, over us, over what we've shared." Bankole steps closer, trying to console her. "I am not choosing anyone over you. Ini is carrying our child and she needs my support. She needs all the support she can get from me." Adesa took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I've been thinking, maybe we should reconsider adoption. It would be simpler and we could raise the child together without all of this chaos." Bankole shook his head firmly. "No, Adeswa, we've been through this. Ini has decided to keep the baby and we can't force her to give it up now." Adeswa's shoulders slumped in defeat. "I don't just know how much more all of this I can take in." As the weeks went on, the tension in the household only grew worse. Adesa found it increasingly difficult to hide her jealousy and frustration. Each time Bankole left for Ines' place, it felt like a dagger to her heart. She tried to distract herself with work and hobbies, but the loneliness was unbearable. Bankole, on the other hand, was caught in a web of his own making. He wanted to be there for Ini and their unborn child, but he also didn't want to lose Adesua. The constant back and forth between the two women was exhausting, and he felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him. Adesua's jealousy reached its peak one evening when she overheard Bankole on the phone with Ini. He was laughing, a sound she hadn't heard from him in many months. After he hung up, Adesua confronted him. "You seem happier with her than you are with me," she said, her voice tinged with bitterness. "It's not like that, Adesua," Bankole tried to explain. "Ini and I are just trying to make things work out for the baby's sake." "But what about us?" Adesua demanded. "When was the last time you and I spent so much time together? When was the last time you made me laugh?" Bankole had no answer. He knew she was right. The distance between them had grown too wide. Adesa's feeling of being sidelined became more than she could bear. She began to withdraw emotionally, putting up walls to protect herself from further hurt. Despite her love for Bankole, she couldn't ignore the reality that their relationship was crumbling under the weight of his involvement with Ini and their impending child. The growing tension in the household was palpable, and neither Bankole nor Adesua knew how much longer they could continue living in this state of turmoil. The once stable foundation of their marriage was now riddled with cracks, threatening to collapse under the pressure of their complicated situation. The month flew by, and before long, Ini gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Bankole was overjoyed and spent even more time with Ini and the baby. further straining his marriage with Adesua. Despite the challenges, Ini felt a sense of completeness with her new role as a mother. However, just when things seemed to be settling down, Ini discovered she was pregnant again. It was only a couple of months after the birth of their son. The news hit her like a ton of bricks. She hadn't planned for another child so soon, and the implications of this new pregnancy were overwhelming. She knew she had to tell Bankole right away. "Bankole, we need to talk," Ini said, trying to keep her voice steady as she held her son in her arms. "What is it, Ini?" Bankole asked, noticing the seriousness in her tone. "I am pregnant," she blurted out, unable to contain her anxiety. Bankole's eyes widened in surprise. "Well, that's not a problem. I don't know what to do," Ini replied. Bankole took a breath, trying to process the news. "We'll figure it out, Ini. We'll make it work. I need children." As the reality of Ini's second pregnancy set in, the situation at home became unbearable for Adesua. She had already endured so much: her husband's infidelity, his constant absence, and the birth of a child that wasn't hers. Now, the news of the pregnancy was the final straw. Adesua felt betrayed and defeated. She had tried to support Bankole and understand his choices, but the pain of seeing him build a family with another woman was too much to bear. She could no longer stay in a marriage that brought her nothing but heartache. One evening, as Bankole returned home from Ini's place, Adesua confronted him with a resolve he hadn't seen before. "Bankole, we need to talk," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Adesua, not now. Not now, I am tired," Bankole said, weary from the day. "Yes, we need to have that conversation now," Adesua insisted. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay." Bankole looked at her, finally realizing the depth of her pain. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I am leaving," Adesua replied, tears streaming down her face. "I can't stay in this marriage. It's killing me. It is draining me." "Adesua, please," Bankole pleaded. "We can work this out." "No, we can't," Adesua said firmly. "You have made your choice, and I need time to make mine. I deserve to be happy too." With that, Adesua packed her belongings and left the house that night, leaving Bankole standing in stunned silence. He had never imagined it to come to this. The woman he loved and shared his life with was now gone, driven away by his own actions. Adesa's departure marked a turning point for Bankole. The weight of his decisions pressed down on him more than ever. He was left to face the consequences of his choices, knowing that he had lost someone who had once been his closest confidant and partner. Adesa's departure left so much void in Bankole's life, one that he couldn't easily fill. He tried to keep up appearances, focusing on his work and responsibilities, but the guilt and regret gnawed at him constantly. Meanwhile, Ini saw an opportunity to secure her future and the future of her children. With Adesua out of the picture, Ini began to pressure Bankole into making their relationship official. She wanted marriage, not just for her sake, but for the sake of her children. She wanted stability and a formal acknowledgement of their family. One evening, as they sat in an upscale apartment, Ini decided to broach the topic. "Bankole, we need to talk about our future," Ini said. "What about our future?" Bankole asked, already sensing where the conversation was headed. "I want us to get married," Ini said bluntly. "We have a son, and we will be having another child together. It's time we made this official." Bankole sighed, feeling the weight of her words. "Ini, marriage is a big step. Are you sure this is what you want? Yes, I am sure, Ini replied firmly. We need to do this for our children. They deserve a stable home with both parents present. Bankole knew she was right, but the thought of marrying Ini under these circumstances filled him with reluctance. His heart was still heavy with the loss of Adesa, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was making another mistake. However, Ini's determination left him with little choice. Alright, Ini, Bankole said, resigning himself to her wishes. We will get married. Ini was overjoyed. She immediately began planning the wedding, sparing no expense, and she wanted everything to be just so perfect. From the venue to the guest list, Bankole watched as she threw herself into the preparations, feeling increasingly detached from the process. The wedding day arrived, and it was a lavish affair. Friends and families gathered to celebrate, but Bankole couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness. He went through the motions, saying the vows and exchanging rings, but his heart wasn't in it. As the weeks turned into months, the cracks in their marriage began to show. Ini's demands continued to grow. She wanted more money for extravagant purchases, more time for Bankole, and more attention. Bankole, already stretched thin emotionally and financially, struggled to keep up. One evening, after a particularly draining day at work, Bankole returned home to find Ini waiting for him, a list of new demands in her hand. Bankole, we need to redecorate the house, Ini said, her tone leaving no room for argument. And I want to hire a nanny to help with my son. It's too much for me to handle alone, considering that we are expecting another child. Bankole rubbed his temples, feeling the pressure build. Ini, we can't keep spending money like this. We need to be more careful and more considerate. Ini's eyes flashed with frustration. We deserve the best, Bankole. You promised to take care of us. I am doing my best, Ini, Bankole replied, his voice strained. But we need to be realistic. We can't keep living beyond our means. The tension between them continued to mount, with arguments becoming more frequent and more intense. Bankole felt trapped in a marriage that seemed to be built on nothing but demands and dissatisfaction. He missed the simplicity and stability of his wife, Adesa, and the realization that he had driven her away only deepened his regret. As Ini demands grew, so did Bankole's resentment. The foundation of their relationship, already shaky, began to crumble under the weight of unmet expectations and unfulfilled promises. The future that Ini had envisioned seemed more uncertain than ever, and Bankole couldn't help but wonder if they would ever find true happiness together. Bankole's life became a constant whirlwind of demands and responsibilities. Ini's insatiable needs for more money, more attention, more luxury created an atmosphere of chaos and tension. Bankole found himself working longer hours to keep up with the financial strain, but no matter how much he earned, it never seemed enough. He became distant, not just from Ini, but from everyone around him. Friends and family noticed the change in him. The once confident and composed man was now stressed and weary, his smile replaced by a permanent frown. One evening, as he sat alone in his office, Bankole reflected on his decisions. The excitement and joy he once felt about becoming a father had turned into a heavy burden. He questioned every choice he had made, from his affair with Ini to his decisions to marry her. Nothing seemed to bring him peace. Meanwhile, Adeswa has started to rebuild her life. After leaving Bankole, she found solace in reconnecting with her ex Chinedu. They had been close during their university days, but had drifted apart after graduation. Meeting Chinedu again was like a breath of fresh air for Adeswa. He was kind, understanding, and patient. Everything she needed during this difficult time. They started seeing each other regularly, and slowly a new relationship began to blossom. Chinedu was supportive and attentive, offering Adeswa the emotional stability she had been craving. For the first time in a long while, she felt valued and cherished. One afternoon, Adeswa and Chinedu were having lunch at a quaint restaurant where he asked, "How are you holding up?" Adeswa smiled softly. "Better, thanks to you. It's been hard, but I feel like I'm finally moving on." Chinedu reached across the table and held her hand. "You deserve to be happy, Adeswa, and I am here for you no matter what." Their relationship brought a new sense of purpose to Adeswa's life. She began to focus on her career and hobbies, finding joy in the little things again. The pain of her failed marriage was still there, but it no longer defined her. Back at the Bankole's home, Bankole's relationship with Ini continued to deteriorate. The constant arguments and the demands left him feeling drained. He missed the simplicity and understanding he once had with Adesua. He often thought about her, wondering if she was happier without him. One night, after a particularly heated argument with Ini about money, Bankole found himself alone in his car, parked outside their house. He stared at the steering wheel, feeling the weight of his choices pressing down on him. He realized that he had lost himself in trying to please everyone, and in the process had ended up pleasing no one, least of all himself. The once joyful anticipation of fatherhood had turned into a burden, and the love he had hoped to build with Ini was overshadowed by constant conflict. Bankole knew something had to change, but he was unsure how to fix the mess his life had become. Bankole's life had spiraled into chaos. His marriage with Ini was strained to its limits, filled with constant arguments and unmet expectations. He felt suffocated by the demands placed upon him, both emotionally and financially. Meanwhile, Adesa had found solace and happiness with Chinedu, her former flame from the university days. One afternoon, as Bankole returned home from another very exhausting day at work, he found Adeswa waiting for him outside of their apartment building. His heart raced with a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "Adeswa, what are you doing here?" Bankole asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "We need to talk," Adeswa said calmly, her eyes revealing a hint of sadness. Bankole hesitated for a moment, then nodded. They walked into the apartment together, where Ini was sitting on the couch, visibly pregnant with their second child. Ini looked up as they entered, her expression guarded. "Adeswa, what brings you to my home?" Adeswa took a deep breath. "I have something important to tell the both of you." Bankole and Ini exchanged wary glances, unsure of what was coming next. "I am pregnant," Adeswa announced quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The revelation hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Bankole felt his heart skip a beat. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Adeswa, pregnant? But how? In his eyes widened in shock. "You? Pregnant? How?" Adeswa glanced at Bankole briefly before continuing. "It's Chinedu's baby. We got back together after I left you." Silence filled the room as Ini processed the news. Bankole struggled to find the words, his mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions. Finally, Ini spoke, her voice tinged with disbelief. "So you've moved on with him?" Adesa nodded, her gaze steady. "Yes, I have, and I am sorry for any pain this is causing you, Ini." Ini looked away, unable to hide her hurt and anger. Bankole remained silent, trying to make sense of the whole situation. His mind was a jumble of conflicting thoughts and emotions. Adesa continued, her tone gentle but firm. "Bankole, I am not the problem after all. I think you should go for medical checkups, just to be sure." Bankole blinked, her words sinking in slowly. "Medical checkups?" "Yes," Adesa replied, "for your own peace of mind." Bankole nodded numbly, feeling the weight of Adesa's advice. He knew she was right. There were too many uncertainties in his life right now, too many unanswered questions. He needed clarity for his sake and for the sake of everyone involved. The revelation of Adesa's pregnancy had shaken the foundation of their already fragile relationship, leaving them both uncertain of what the future held. Ini welcomed their second child amidst the whirlwinds of emotions. For Bankole, however, life had taken a devastating turn. Encouraged by Adesa's advice, he went for medical checkups, hoping for clarity amidst the chaos of his life. The doctor's revelation shattered his world. They discovered complications that led them to conduct DNA tests on Ini's children. The results were a crushing blow. Bankole wasn't the biological father of the two children. He couldn't father a child. He struggled to process the news, feeling betrayed and deceived. All the sacrifices he had made, the compromises he had endured, now seemed meaningless. His relationship with Ini, built on a foundation of lies and deceit, crumbled before his eyes. Unable to bear the weight of the deception, Bankole confronted Ini. The confrontation was heated, filled with accusations and tears. Ini pleaded for forgiveness, but the damage was irreparable. "I trusted you," Bankole whispered, his voice trembling with pain, "and you lied to me. You betrayed me. You deceived me." Ini tried to explain, to make him understand, but her words fell on deaf ears. Bankole had reached his breaking point. With a heavy heart, he ended their relationship, severing ties with the woman who had once been a significant part of his life. As Bankole struggled to pick up the pieces of his shattered life, he turned to Adesa, hoping against hope that she would take him back. But Adesa had already moved on with Chinedu, finding peace and happiness in the relationship built on trust and understanding. She was even more excited because she was expecting her own child for the man she now loved. Bankole begged and pleaded, but Adesa remained firm in her decision. She had found her own resolution, her own path forward, and it no longer included Bankole. Heartbroken and alone, Bankole faced the consequences of his choices. He had lost everything completely. He had lost his marriage, he had lost his family, and he had lost the woman he had loved deeply. His journey had come to full circle, leaving him to rebuild his life from the ruins of his past. The unexpected resolution had brought closure, but it had also left scars that would take a lifetime to heal. The moral lesson of this story is that deceit and infidelity can lead to deep pain and loss. It shows the importance of honesty and trust in relationships, and the consequences of making choices based on selfish desires without considering the impact on others. Thanks for watching this captivating story on African stories and folktales. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories. Thank you.